Yes. Wait until I talk, then you can decide whether or not you want to stand up. Thank you very much, Bob. I appreciate that introduction. I would also like to very much thank the Aurora Rotary Club, all of our servers today in the Crown Plaza, all of the city staff who helped to put this event together. Certainly, I'd like to thank my wife, Becky, and I know I have seen a couple of elected officials who were not introduced, several here at the Arapahoe County table. There were some Aurora School Board members, so I'd like to welcome them and thank them for being here as well. Many of you folks here today are a vital part of the Aurora business community. I'd also like to take a moment and thank you. Thank you for opening a new business in the city, for making an investment in land or building in the city, maintaining your business during these challenging years. You all are the backbone that make this city a great place to work and live. We don't say it enough. So on behalf of me and my fellow city council members, we want to thank you for doing business in the city of Aurora. This program today will be a little bit different than some of the past events. While I'm speaking, at moments you will also see visuals on the screens on either side here. And following my address, there will also be a question and answer session with Gloria Neal. So we'll see if we can make this just a little bit more entertaining than Steve Hogan talking for 45 minutes. At last year's State of the City, we would never have imagined that the challenge we would face would be viewed by literally the entire world. The terrible tragedy that took place on July 20th will forever be a part of our history, but it will not define us. As has been found in other places that suffered through similar tragedies, similar events have occurred. The entire Aurora community, our metropolitan neighbors, and the entire state of Colorado stepped up to show support, encouragement, and kindness. This city itself showed courage, strength, and resilience. And we witnessed how the very worst of circumstances brings out the very best in people. On a personal note, I want all of you to know that I learned from that day and from the many days that followed that this city will not be defined by a single terrible act. Leadership takes a certain fearlessness, and that through tragedy, people around the world saw our community stand together and stood with us in sorrow and in healing. As I know all of you will not, I will never forget the events of that day. But many of my memories will be of those who saved lives, who gave of themselves without question, who worked tirelessly and showed compassion and concern for individuals that they may never have met before. One more time today, I want to thank each and every one of them and each and every one of you for your care over the last 10 months. A day of remembrance is being planned on the anniversary, and it will be a multifaceted day of meaningful remembrance, continued healing, and positive community actions. That day, which is centered on service projects, will begin with a morning ceremony to honor and remember those whose lives were lost, the survivors and their loved ones. So please sign up and be a part of this special day of community involvement. Now today, Aurora is recovering economically and emotionally over where we found ourselves for much of last year. We continue to retain and attract employers to help address the fact that we still have too many citizens looking for a job. But on your table today are two pieces of information. One you can blame on me. It's a smaller sheet. It's my view of what it takes to build a great Aurora. The other sheet that you will find on your table, which is a little bigger, and I just want to point them out because I know they're folded up, trying to avoid the dressing and all the sweets on the dessert. That's an outline of approximately 50 things that occurred in Aurora over the last 12 to 14 months. Those things aren't my accomplishments. Those things are accomplishments of this city. And it happened through the leadership of the City Council and the Mayor. I think you'll be surprised and impressed with how much the city team has accomplished in this last year, particularly given that there hasn't been a tax increase in Aurora in 20 years. I'd like to thank City Manager Skip Noe, City Attorney Charlie Richardson, Court Administrator Zelda Du Bois, and Chief Judge Rick Weinberg, and all of our city employees for their outstanding service on behalf of the City of Aurora. Now, I can't always see the future, but I can see the present. First, with only half of the city's 154 square miles developed, Aurora is in an enviable position. In real estate terms, Aurora has location, location, location. And thanks to those who develop and open retail opportunities in the city, our residents receive goods and services they want, and our city uses the resulting sales tax revenues to build a better Aurora. Our sales tax revenue has now recovered to the level of 2007, and we've now had almost 2 years in a row where we've seen positive returns on a month-to-month basis. Aurora has already begun the transition from a suburban community to a nationally known urban community. The Fitzsimmons Anschutz campus alone marks us as a place to be. With 335,000 residents, Aurora is the 56th largest city in the country and the 4th largest suburb in terms of population. Now, you may not know it, but there are only 20 cities in the United States with a population over 650,000, and only 9 cities in the country with more than 1 million residents. Now, clearly, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but if you take Aurora's population currently, and you take our current rate of growth, not an accelerated growth, but a current rate of growth, in less than 30 years, Aurora could have a population of 525,000 people. And if it continued, by the end of the century, Aurora would be a home to 1 million citizens. While Aurora may well not be the largest city in Colorado in 2010, or may well be, you can rest assured that I will do everything in my power while I am mayor to ensure that the city is also recognized, not just for being big, but being a dynamic, vibrant city where a people aspire to be. Different interests in Aurora are making news right now for many different positive, important reasons. And allow me to take a moment just to touch on a few. There's currently more than 100,000 square feet of space occupied by growing bioscience firms at the 3 Fitzsimmons Rehabilitation Authority buildings. One of these firms, Grefex, has just created a bird flu vaccine utilizing what they call a plug-and-play method to address emergent infectious threats. That firm is changing the speed at which vaccines can be produced to prevent the spread of new disease around the world. I'd also like to recognize at this time Mayor Pro Tem Marcia Berzins and City Council Member Sally Monnier, who serve with me on that FRA board and who are proud to see what is happening in that community. Certainly, Buckley Air Force Base is the nucleus of the Colorado aerospace industry. In addition to the defense missions conducting global surveillance for rocket launches by the 4th 60th Space Wing and homeland defense flights by the 160th Wing of the Colorado Air National Guard, Buckley is also an economic engine, generating $1 billion a year in economic impact. It is one of the reasons we are home to more than 1/3 of the state's defense and aerospace jobs, helping to make Colorado the 2nd largest aerospace presence in the United States. I hope all of you can see very clearly that Buckley Air Force Base must be protected and expanded, not just for Aurora, but for all of Colorado. And again, I'd like to recognize City Council Member Debbie Hunter-Holan for all the work that she has done to ensure that Buckley is here in the future. Aurora continues to expand investment into public art, creating art and light in one project in the original part of our city. There is now a 3-block-long illuminated feature at Fletcher Plaza that lines the rooftops of historic buildings along Colfax. If you haven't been there, you should see it. It creates continuity, and it symbolizes the tradition of live theater in Aurora. Spotlight Aurora, as it is known, is now an award-winning project, and it also symbolizes the bright light the city is focusing on the arts development in Aurora. And while we're talking about exciting developments in the Arts District, the beer lovers out there among us can rejoice. Moo Brewery is moving into a building on Colfax, and it will add another great, exceptional brewer to Aurora, joining the now award-winning and well-known Dry Dock Brewery. I see how much this city will change in the next 5 to 7 years and all the wonderful things that will result. However, I believe we cannot afford to dream small. We cannot afford to let inaction elsewhere dictate how, when, and where we grow. And importantly, we cannot accept the status quo. I believe it is time to envision our future and take the actions necessary to move us there. As mayor, I want to share with you my vision for the city. It is a robust, vibrant economy seeded by bioscience, medical, aerospace, and renewable energy industries from across the globe that complement a culturally rich community. It is a city that embraces creativity and the arts. It is a city that has developed in a way to meet the needs of businesses and neighborhoods, both now and in the future. It is a city focused on economic development to help create jobs, to balance out our economic structure, and to attract more companies like United Natural Foods, Niagara Bottling, Advanced Circuits. And it's a city focused on improving many different transportation alternatives. We must work together to fund, maintain, and improve infrastructure needs like streets, bike paths, medians, common areas, and trails. And among the leaders on our city council in that effort are council members Bob Laguerre and Bob Broom, and they will continue to be leaders. But the single most important piece of the city's changing infrastructure is the light rail line being built through the heart of the city. I believe that line needs to be renamed the Aurora Main Line, and I would ask the Aurora City Council to adopt a resolution asking RTD to make that name change. The light rail line will transform this city. It is not just a commuter line running along I-225. This 10.5 miles of track transverses the core of the city. And when it opens in 2016, and I will say that again, 2016, when it opens, it will connect the entire metro area to Aurora. The Aurora Main Line will create great opportunity to build gathering places, a mixture of housing, office, retail, entertainment, and other amenities integrated into sustainable, walkable neighborhoods that are located within a half mile of that light rail. We also cannot forget that the first stops on the soon-to-be-opened East Line also serve Aurora. And going back to location, 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 how many other cities can claim service from 2 rail lines, 3 interstate highways, and 2 airports? I believe the Aurora Main Line will boost the development of what should also be named the Aurora Medical District, formerly named the Aurora Medical District. From Peoria to Chambers along Colfax, and from 17th to Iliff along 225. With the Aurora Medical Center on the south and the Fitzsimmons-Anschutz Medical Campus on the north, development potential exists to add even more hospitals, medical support service offices, office and retail space, and the entertainment and restaurants people need and want. Would also like to acknowledge Councilmember Bob Roth for taking the lead in what happens as far as City Council is concerned in making light rail a reality in Aurora. At this time, I'd also like to mention something called destination healthcare. It relates to both the Aurora Medical Center and what's happening at the Fitzsimmons-Anschutz campus. Visit Aurora is an organization that's existed for just 2 years. And during that time, we've seen double-digit growth in lodgers tax collections and more than 88,000 new room nights into this market. But perhaps the most important thing Visit Aurora has done is help launch a new concept of matching quality healthcare offerings, like the hospitals themselves, successful medical outcomes, and the physicians and services we have in Aurora, with the people in need of those services. This is called destination healthcare, and it results in significant medical-related travel to our city. It did not exist in Colorado before Visit Aurora created it. I would like to offer my salute to Gary Wheat and his staff for a job well done. I would also like to recognize Renee Peterson and Brad Pierce from the Aurora City Council for the work that they have done in support of Visit Aurora. I would also like to tell you that I believe at this time, Council ought to approve a fee or a ballot question asking for a reasonable increase in the lodgers tax to allow for even more success and creativity for Visit Aurora. I believe the result will be more improved opportunities for our citizens and new, different activities for visitors to this wonderful city. Now let's talk about the Marriott Gaylord Hotel. Last year at this time, we all thought it was a done deal. Then we all thought it was dead. It was a disappointment to the city and also to the state of Colorado. At this time, I'd like to recognize Wendy Mitchell and the Aurora Economic Development Council for working with me and not giving up on the possibility of bringing this project back. We now expect that by the end of the third quarter of this year, the paperwork will be finished with the state, and Aurora will be home to the largest non-casino hotel between Chicago and the West Coast. That's north of Texas. You know, Texas also always has other things. With 1,500 rooms and 450,000 square feet of conference and meeting space, this development will truly help make Aurora a destination. The hotel will help drive development in adjacent areas and will bring immeasurable exposure to the city, the metropolitan region, and the state of Colorado. This is exactly the kind of beneficial development that was intended 25 years ago when voters of Adams County approved an agreement that transferred 54 square miles of land to Denver upon which to build DIA. Aurora continues to be strong advocates for economic development of the region, and we believe that all jurisdictions benefit from a regional approach. Aurora needs to ensure that development on and around the airport occurs within the parameters of that long-standing agreement, or that the agreement needs to be modified in some way to work for the benefit of all jurisdictions. Along with Councilmember Barb Cleland as representatives of the city in our current discussions, I will continue to work hard for a positive outcome for Aurora and for our partners. Now, every mayor thinks Aurora, Aurora, every mayor thinks their city is the best one in the world. So what makes Aurora different? Well, in my eyes, it's some of the following. Aurora doesn't just say we welcome the world, we are the world. In Aurora, we have over 100 countries represented in our public schools. We are one of the most integrated communities in the country, regularly celebrating diversity and cultural pride. Aurora's international connection and diversity adds a rich texture and depth to our community of residences and businesses. We have an asset that, if tapped, can add to the many multicultural entrepreneurs running small businesses throughout the city by bringing more international companies here. We have a flavor of that where Hittite Solar Energy from Turkey, Ibengoa Solar from Spain, and other international companies have chosen to do their research in Aurora at SolarTech, a world-class test and demonstration facility where members can perform research activities that deliver solar technology to the commercial market in a timely and cost-effective manner. There's plenty of space at the Aurora campus for renewable energy where SolarTech is located. So I would ask, why not extend the testing to other markets? So Congressman Kaufman, as you're working with the budget, and while you're trying to make things better, I would suggest that now's the time to explore working with the Department of Defense to establish a central federal alternative energy test facility at the site where they could test things like alternative fuel sources for military vehicles. Aurora is poised to establish also an Office of International Development, an effort to not only support the needs of our current residents, but to explore the establishment of a foreign trade zone that will attract investment and international trade opportunities to Aurora. By the end of this year, I would also expect the city to have reestablished a viable Sister Cities program and to have marked celebrations to permanently place an international community roundtable as part of Aurora's ongoing community relations activities. I would like to also call out Councilmember Molly Markert for her ongoing assistance and help in making these things happen. I've been called a lot of things in my life. Some of them could not be repeated in this room, but no one has called me status quo. Despite my desire to improve, I cannot do this job effectively or well without your help. Last Sunday, I was honored to participate in the dedication of the Colorado Freedom Memorial. The memorial was a dream of one man and his family. It took them 13 years with a huge amount of work. He saw his dream come true and was a part of pride and satisfaction that only comes from commitment, perseverance, and a drive to never give up. The American dream isn't that anyone can have what they want just because they're here in America and are entitled to it. The American dream is the opportunity to work freely to achieve what you want if you're willing to work hard enough for it. My earlier stated vision for this city is not the same as my dream for this city. A vision often translates into specific proposals that need to be voted up or down. A dream consists of desires to be striven for. The dream creates the vision. And while I freely admit it's mine and no one else's, here are the basics of my Aurora dream. Aurora will be the place where people from around the world can resettle in this city that they will call home. They will settle here because the people are welcoming, the cost of living is reasonable, jobs are plentiful, and the city welcomes diverse cultures. Our water is plentiful, great tasting, of the highest quality. Public safety services are excellent. Transportation options are convenient, and the city is banded together through the most current technologies. Aurora will be a city that takes seriously a responsibility to assist in achieving the best for its citizens through supporting our educational systems, the medical system, and the social services system, filling in gaps where organizations don't cover what needs to be done. And finally, we are a city, no matter how large we have grown, we still value the needs and desires of our businesses, our residents, and our neighborhoods. If I've learned anything this last year, it's not to give up, give in, or run scared. The satisfaction and joy of seeing a dream come true for your city can start today. Over the next few weeks, I will start to issue a series of specific actions I would hope the City Council will take to continue to move the dream of Aurora into a vision that can be achieved by all. As a first hint, I will tell you that I believe it is long past time we came together to find a way to build at least one recreation center, one community active adult center, and one covered swimming pool for every 100,000 residents of our city. And it's because they're needed. Ours is a city that solves such problems, and our citizens deserve these services no matter what part of this city they live in. And again, I emphasize the word city because Aurora is no longer just a suburb in Colorado. I look forward to your help in achieving some form of my Aurora dream and the Aurora vision, and I look forward to bringing you more good news about what I believe is the most wonderful city of Colorado in my next address in 2014. Thank you. Now we're going to have a little question and answer.
Yes, we do. Is your mic on?
I do.
Yes, your mic is on. Mine is not. No, it is.
It'll be there.
Okay. I think we're good. Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, please, for Mayor Hogan. And so now the fun starts. Ooh, you look all nervous. Now the fun starts. Don't be nervous. This part is painless, kind of like going to the dentist. So, you know what, Mayor Hogan, let me ask you this, because, you know, I live in Aurora, and you know this. You talk about the tragedy of 7/20, and, you know, it's been 10 months, and I know we've got the day of remembrance that is coming up. How do you think the community is doing overall? We know it's resilient, we know people have stepped up, we know the healing process is well underway, but how do you think we are doing?
I think generally we're doing well. We're improving. We're not there yet. Mm-hmm. I know, for example, that the Aurora Mental Health Center still sees a spike in requests for service every time there's a large headline in the paper or a story on radio and TV about the court case.
Right.
So we're not there yet, but I believe we're improving. It's going to take time. Mm-hmm. I was at a U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting a few months ago and was talking with the mayor of Blacksburg, West Virginia, where the Virginia Tech shooting occurred. And he said, we're still healing, and it was 5 years ago. Right. So it's going to take time.
Right. The reopening of the Century 16 Theater, so controversial, and understanding all sides really of that issue. What was the best solution? I don't think it's really a matter of right or wrong. What was the best solution, and do you think that was found for that?
I think it was the best solution. Before July 20th of last year, that was a theater for a large region of the city of Aurora. If you didn't go to that theater, you had to drive a long way elsewhere in the city to go to another theater or perhaps to another community. Mm-hmm. So it was a central place. We did go through a process of soliciting input from the community. Right. Those who took the time to say something, 3/4 of them said, open it. And it was not a loaded question on the website. It was say whatever you want to say. And so we got that answer. Right. Certainly, we're still in the process of determining what will happen on a permanent memorial, and there will be one. But I think, just as your previous question with how are we doing, what happens with the permanent memorial is based more on how are the families and the survivors doing. They're the ones who are going to indicate to us when it's time to talk about a permanent memorial.
You know, you talked about the importance of business in Aurora. Many business leaders are here in the public and private sector. Does it irk you sometimes that Aurora is seen as a suburb of Denver, or is it a testimony between really the relationship that you have with Mayor Hancock, that really shows that there's a terrific partnership that has been built.
I think there's been a great partnership that's been built over the years, and I think it's a partnership that will continue. But there's just a simple mathematical reality, 20 years ago, Aurora was less than half the size of Denver.
Right.
Now Aurora is 60% of the size of Denver, right, and will continue to grow just as Denver will grow. I'm not irked by it. I just want us in Aurora to see that we have moved past the stage of being a suburb. We are a city, and it's not exactly the same, but it's not unlike Minneapolis, St. Paul, or Dallas, Fort Worth, or other places that we say in the same breath.
Right.
And I think eventually people will talk about that around the country, and it'll be, sorry, Mayor, but Aurora, Denver. Maybe Denver, Aurora, I don't know. I think it will be recognized that way, because we are not going to recreate a new downtown.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
The downtown that's in Denver
Absolutely.
is lively,
It is.
viable, wonderful place to be.
It is.
We're not going to try to recreate that. So why should we? Why shouldn't we work on the things that we do well,
Right.
make them happen, and continue that partnership?
Let's talk about the light rail. You spoke about the importance of the new light rail and Aurora's future. So many times, being in the media, you hear so much about the cost. People are talking about the cost. But I also know, as I travel around, the importance of having more than a highway coming in from your airport. There needs to be a major transportation system that goes from where your people are to where they need to be. How do you get people to understand the importance of light rail and how it will change the future of Aurora?
I think we just have to take them out and put them in one of the cars and go, and they'll figure it out. I've been very, very fortunate to be able to travel a lot of places around the world. And most recently, my wife and I were in Hong Kong, and the airport is a long way from Hong Kong.
It is.
But you get to Hong Kong, and you get there by rail.
Right.
You do that
Were you on the
in
bullet
other
train?
big cities around the country.
Were you on that,
around
what
the
is that,
world.
that bullet train or the?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really.
You even think of, in this country, the big cities who have wonderful transportation systems, Washington, D.C.,
Yes,
New York,
mm-hmm.
Chicago. It's not just highways, it's not just streets.
Right.
It's transit,
Right.
it's bike paths, it's all the options, and that's what, we've got the opportunity to do it now.
Right.
We don't have to come back in and fix it. Let's do it now.
Right. So let's talk about our yards and the water. This 2-day-a-week schedule is killing me. Anybody else out there? Okay, because grass is not cheap. Can we talk about this? So we're experiencing, I know there's been a drought, although it's been snowing a lot and raining a lot at my house, and I live in Southlands. Don't write my address down. But you look at the water and the watering restrictions, and I realize everybody is going through it. Conserving water and making sure it is there. With the late spring snow, how does our water supply look? Because every now and then I do go by the Aurora Reservoir and I check. It looks really good. So talk to us and let us know how we are doing. Have things gotten better, and we will be able to use more water later in the summer?
Things have gotten better, but it's really too early to go
And
back
we don't know what
revisit
next
the
year is going to
decision.
look
And
like.
we don't know what next year is going to look like. And the problem here is the problem that Denver's had since its founding. It's storage.
Yeah.
We've got to have storage facilities in order to store water in those years when it snows and rains at 175, 200%.
Right.
And we're working on that, and I think we'll have good news on that as we move forward. I know Denver Water's working on it as well. But it's a metropolitan issue. It's not just an Aurora issue.
Right.
And bottom line, look, as excited as I get looking at my small patch of green in my backyard, thinking it really looks great, we live in what is literally defined as a semi-arid part of the country. It wasn't called the Great American Desert back in 1806 for no reason.
Right.
It's because rain didn't fall, so, and snow didn't fall. So we've just got to fight our way through it.
Is it also important to make everyone realize that the days of when we're brushing our teeth and we turn the water on, just because we're used to turning the water on, we need to be cognizant to turn that water off? How do we raise that consciousness of those small things matter?
Well, I think we continue those messages, but truthfully, I think the metropolitan area has done a fantastic job over the last 10 years in terms of conservation. Certainly, we could continue to do more, but I think if you compare what this metropolitan area has done versus some others that rely on the same water that flows out of Colorado, we're leaps and bounds ahead of places like Phoenix, Las Vegas, you name it.
I know that I have limited time, but nobody's giving me the reps. Oh, one more question, yeah. I saw that finger in the desert. Thank you so very much. That's one more question. Someone wants to know, what is your favorite thing to do in Aurora? They specifically said in Aurora, and when you have free time, and do you actually have free time? So what do you like to do?
I do have some free time occasionally, but I'm on call, 24/7, 365, and it's turned out that way. If I can do it, I love to play golf on any of Aurora's courses, but I'll be honest, my favorites are Meadow Hills and
So you're pretty good.
and Murphy Creek. I'm not that good.
Okay, no, you're not good.
But I love to play.
You love to
I love
play.
to get out. And, we've got, Becky and I have, half a dozen favorite restaurants in the city, and they're all over the city. And I'm not going to go out on a limb and start to mention them because
Exactly,
that'll
but
get me
you're a
in trouble.
foodie.
But I'm a foodie.
You're a foodie.
I'm also known to enjoy a glass of wine with dinner.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good, just one?
Just maybe, maybe two.
He says maybe two. Well, good. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Hogan.